screaming at you. But we're going to get a little taste of music and of dance and of history. And Mindy Shear and the DE Latin Dance Ensemble have a magical night for you. So, directed by Mindy Shear, we celebrate the variety and unique qualities of Latin dance. The clave-based dances, clave in Spanish means key, is the history and music that helped to shape them through the last century through now. So tonight's going to be a special treat. We're going to take you all the way through all the different genres and all the different decades. So Latin dances, or clave-based dances, were predated in salsa 40 or 60 years that were part of the DNA of salsa music. So the Latin music scene was hopping from the 1930s to the 1960s. And then before Boogaloo came on the scene, then salsa in the early 70s with Fania record labels in New York. So we got a little fireside chat as I'm giving you guys the history. So immigrants from Puerto Rico and post-revolution Cubans brought with them music and instruments with influences from Spain, Africa, and indigenous tribes. So there was a big thirsting for partner dancing and Latin music craze from the 40s to the 60s. So it fueled a huge climate that birthed salsa and marketed the music in New York. But the roots of salsa, mambo, and cha-cha are in Cuba. So the story of dance from Havana to New York is a story of societal viewpoints. It's a story of racial injustice. It's a story of politics as well as business. So let's can we give a huge little shimmy? Can you look at your neighbor and shimmy your neighbor? So let's give a huge round of applause for the DE Latin Dance Ensemble group.
The end of the 1900s in Cuba was the time Cuban song was born, the dance and the music. It and the song have a close hold partnering, European to be exact, with movement elements of Afro-Cuba. It is slow and was done in squares and outside in small towns as the danzón was. Combines elements of the Spanish, quesillo, Spanish, guitar, African rhythms, percussions, instruments of the Bantu origins, the displaying of the lady as may have been in Europe court dances, with coy flirtation and a hint of the call and response that is Afro-Cuban origin. And over time the dancers, anxious for faster music, would call out to the musicians to speed things up, shouting mambo.
La conga, bailar al compás del tambor, tocados por manos de negros cubanos que hayan jurado tocar su tambor. ¡Oh! Chimboro, chimboro, chimboro. En Cuba se corta la caña, en Cuba se toma café, en Cuba se baila bembé, se fuma tabaco, se toma guarapo, detrás de la comparsa se ve echando un pie. Giribo, 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 jimboro, 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 jimboro.
All right, y'all. So, history lesson again. The origins of the clave-based dances and the reason we even have salsa today goes all the way back to the 1700s and the complex history of Cuba, Haiti, and the slave trade. So Cuba went through a series of occupations and influences. Anyone can guess? Countries? Spain, British, and US. In 1791, the arrival of the sugar plantation owners fleeing a slave uprising in Haiti triggered a sugar economy, an industry which drove the use of slave labor and the arrival of enslaved people from West Africa. The arrival marks a key point in the Havana to New York story. So the Yoruban culture from parts of Africa, music, language, and traditions came to Central and North and South America through the slave trade, and Cuba was no exception. With this came the clave, which is the heartbeat of salsa. So Cuban rumbas were played across the interior of Cuba, carried as enslaved West Africans, carrying their tradition and music with the African drum and the bell rhythms. So this combined with Spanish influences gave us the Moengo rumba. This was the grandfather of the danzón, the Cuban son, the mambo, cha-cha, and much later the salsa. So dances like bolero, American and international rumba, all types of salsa, and even bachata were structured around the clave. All these dances are a mix of classical European partner ballroom dance and Afro-Cuban dances. So, what's your next one?
This was the era of the cha-cha, mambo, and rumba. Bolero music from the 1930s in the hands of Spanish composition Xavier Cugat. The dance had a characteristic hiccup on the fourth beat and steps defined by Arthur Murray. It had a new tempo and percussive rhythm that was savory and inviting in its various forms. Bolero cha-cha, bolero cha-cha-cha, danzón cha-cha-cha, and even a samba cha-cha-cha. The cha-cha-cha swept dance floors and nightclubs. It was a new sound for the Latin music that incorporated brass strings or reeds melodically with a Latin rhythm section. Charanga orchestras in Cuba caught this trend and interpreted and created cha-cha-cha based on music in the north. The beat was defined. Some say it is combinations of Puerto Rican danzonere and the Cuban danzón, while others say it is the tripling of a fast mambo dance step. The 50s and the 60s were the origins of the reign of cha-cha until it was dethroned by the pachanga, then the boogaloo.
graduated from History Level 102. So between the 1930s and the 1950s, huge dance clubs and venues up and down the East Coast, from Miami's Ball and Chain Club in Little Havana to the Palladium in New York to Coconut Grove in LA. Band leaders like Xavier Cugat, Perez Prado made their living making music for dancers playing mambos and cha-chas, like you just saw. So dancers and composers had a very close symbiotic relationship, and they were often creating new danceable rhythms and timings together. So to avoid steps being too crazy or complicated, they were often improvising, and so there was a lot of percussive heavy rhythms that were being changed and being layered, and lush orchestra arrangements came in. So some say, because we're in America, the music shifted to make an American audience a little more comfortable with the rhythms and a little less sensual and sexy. So on a later note, Xavier Cugat, one of our amazing musicians, a rumba album note, he said, the suave continental Cugat tamed the jungle exuberance of the rumba to something Americans could and would dance, sadly. So here we go for the Boogaloo Cha-Cha.
The mambo was popular alongside the cha-cha-cha in the later 1960s. Themes were ripe for salsa's birth, as soul, funk, and social setting in the 60s allowed for freedom, integration, unrest, and the sexual revolution. Mambos and partner dancing were still popular. They began to fade with new music and social changes. The clave rhythm began to show up in early rock and roll tunes. New York, Chicago, and the doo-wop of the Motown era had come into play, and the sound of the mambo began to change.
cigars in the room, and I spent 4 years in Nicaragua, where a lot of Cubans have incredible cigars. So missing that piece. But the U.S. occupation of Cuba from 1898 to 1904, and our connection with the Caribbean through phonographs, radio, and movies, opened the door to Latin music in the U.S. between 1940 and 1969. And then, 800,000 Puerto Ricans immigrated to the U.S., followed by Cuban immigrants after the Cuban Revolution in 1959. So musicians and artists brought their tradition to the U.S., and particularly New York. Jazz artists, Latin musicians worked together, and U.S.-born musicians, African-American, from Cuba, from U.S., from Puerto Rico, all came together and just made magic. So the birthplace of salsa, or the sound as we know it, was born in New York and popularized in this. And so we integrated all of the magic that brings us here tonight, and why all of us are here supporting fellow dancers. Dance yourself. I know some people are like, I can't dance. Everyone here can dance, y'all. Everyone here can move their hips in a circle. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you say. Everyone can do it. So we're now in an innovative era for salsa, bachata, and other popular Latin dance clubs and styles. So the musical DNA still remains, and we really wanted to root you in the Cuban, Puerto Rican, all of the magic that comes from New York and where it comes from and why. So we're still recreating the steps and these fusions and new styles and branches of dances because we're getting more and more connected, obviously, with the World Wide Web. So thank you all for being here. I think we're giving them a little extra time to sing.
The mambo, as it is named, dates to 1938 with Oresto Lopez and a danzón composition called Mambo. The translation of mambo is roughly conversation with the gods. The influence of North American jazz influenced creation of the rumba music became faster and faster, and dances step modified into mambo steps. Mambo arrived with great fanfare and commercial success via Mexico with Perez Prado, a Cuban composer and conductor, and officially named Mambo, dance and the music. The music had inched toward salsa, this fast tempo and complex rhythm reflecting Puerto Ricans and Cubans musicians. We are not there yet. The journey lands us squarely with Boogaloo, was a short-lived chapter in this story, but in it you can hear the unique mix of fast mambo, swing, and jazz, and with it, a representation of the mix of uniquely North American music with soul, funk, Afro-Cuba, and our final presentation, a 1966 cover of Peggy Lee's Fever, a Cuban artist, La Lupe. Fever! Mambo, mambo, mambo!
Groovy, baby, groovy. Ay. Never know how much I love you. Never know how much I care. And when you put your arms around me, I get the fever that's so hard to bear. You give me fever. Ay. When you kiss me, fever. When you hold me tight, fever. In the morning, fever all through the night. Everybody got the fever. That is something you all know. Tener fiebre no es de ahora. Hace mucho tiempo que empezó. You give me fever. Ay. When you kiss me, fever. When you hold me tight, fever. In the morning, fever all through the night. Everybody, 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 everybody got the fever. That is something you all know. Tener fiebre no es de ahora. Hace mucho tiempo que empezó. Ay. Hace mucho tiempo que empezó. Ay. Hace mucho tiempo que empezó. Que empezó. Que empezó. Que empezó. Que empezó.
working so hard.